What's going on, everybody? It's Justin Gazaba, and this is Living and Moving to Seattle, Washington. This is the channel. This is the channel that gives you all the nitty-gritty details and information, everything that you're looking for right here when you're thinking about making a move out here into Seattle, whether it's Seattle, Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, in the Pacific Northwest, right here in the Emerald City. We want to get you all the details and information that you're looking for. Let me get that. There we go. Get you all the details and information that you're looking for so that you can make a really smart, educated decision with little to no speculation about what it's like to live here. In this video, we are going to talk about renting versus owning, and I promise you, it's not what you think. Stay to the very end because I'm going to give you some huge, massive tips that's going to help you in your journey out here. But there's a few things I want to break down first, okay? So let's get straight into it. Let's not waste any time. Now look, I've got people reaching out to me all the time. I love it. We're having those conversations, and we really are trying to hone in on, gosh, you know, what's your ideal lifestyle in the area look like? Have you visited it at all? Do you know what the area is all about? And a lot of times we start with kind of what you're looking for, bedrooms, bathrooms, commute-wise, and then we get into, I like that better. We get into, you know, hey, what's your work life look like? Are you a hybrid model? Do you have to go to the office every day? Do you commute? What's that going to look like? If you're commuting up to Everett to Boeing, or down to Renton to Boeing, or you're working in South Lake Union and you've got to get down, you know, do you want to be 15 minutes away or is 40 minutes away? What's that lifestyle look like for you, your family, whoever you're living with? Do you need a big yard because you got dogs? Do you need a big yard because you got kids? Do you need a small yard? You want to live in town? You want to live in one of the beautiful skyscrapers and condos that we've got downtown because you love that urban appeal and you like being close to walking distance to farmers markets and this all the downtown, you know, bars and restaurants? Or do you want kind of that small time vibe, that small town feel, but you don't want to have too much maintenance? So a townhouse in Fremont or Ballard makes more sense. Or are you totally doing something different? You want to get to the Gold Coast of Seattle and live in West Seattle that has those sandy beaches on Alki and has a completely different relaxed vibe, a little bit further away from the downtown core, but offers a lot in lifestyle. So the thing, after we break down, you know, those you know, requirements and nice to haves and your perfect magic wand scenario, there's something I'm going to cut straight to the chase because you know, a lot of times in consultations we'll get there, and when we're doing, you know, rent versus own, honestly, it's a lot less up front to rent a place. Now, if you've seen my other videos, you know what that real opportunity cost looks like, because it's not just your rent, right? It's not just the rent that you pay. It's also the loss and appreciation that makes that expensive. But you know, with renting, you're just paying first, last deposit, that kind of thing. It's easy to get into, you would think, right? It's easy to do that. Now, here's the deal. If you are, let's see, is that better? That's way better. If you are thinking about living in the area for 2, maybe 3 years, 2 to 3 years, if you're thinking about living only for 2 to 3 years, you could really, it's on the cusp. It might not make the most sense to buy a place if you're thinking about selling that place and moving. Over the last couple of years, we have had massive appreciation. Seattle typically is a high appreciation market, so we do see a lot of appreciation in this market. Historically, if you look at national averages and this sort of thing, Seattle is usually above those national averages, right? And it really comes down to it, you know, neighborhood by neighborhood, building by building. Appreciation is going to be different where you are, but we're just talking in averages to give you an idea. So that 3-year cusp, if I'm cutting to the chase with you, I'm saying, hey, if you don't plan on being here for more than 3 years, it might not be a good idea to buy. That's where we really get into the math of rent versus own. Now, the caveat to that is, if you want to build wealth through real estate, You definitely want to buy, you definitely want a house hack, you want to think about getting a roommate. I just saw a great place just in Greenwood here, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, had an ADU, a second kitchen, really easy to kind of duplex that place out and have that. They actually, the sellers make a killing on Airbnb, and I want to say they're asking $800 for the place. Could use some updates. Man, oh man, come on, you can't beat that, right? So if you're thinking about building wealth through real estate, it really can make a lot of sense to get into something and then have a plan, house hack or otherwise. I know that's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to be a landlord. Not everybody wants to give up their privacy to get that leg up. I totally understand that. There's no pressure for me to do that. I'm just saying it's a really good option, and I've had clients that have done that and it's worked out really well. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was that 3-year cutoff, right? That 2 to 3 years, you're really on the cusp. And the caveat to that is, if you want to build wealth through real estate, then it's time to make that move, right? So that's one of the things, renting versus owning. It's going to be a lot less money up front to get into a place, and because of that, there's not a, you're just giving that money away. You've got to be very comfortable with that. Whereas with buying, right, you're making an investment, a long-term investment. Guys, we don't day trade real estate. That's just not, you got to think in decades, not in years when you think about real estate. Start thinking about decades when you think about investments. Now, I don't want to totally go off the rails and start talking about investments and stuff, because a lot of folks that reach out, we're helping people find great homes for themselves, their family, and like I said, their lifestyle. It is a lifestyle choice to own a home, right? So if you see yourself as a homeowner, then that's the way to go. The second thing on the list, you see me look down, I was just checking my notes, I want to stay on track for you guys. The second thing about renting a home here in Seattle versus buying a home is, honestly, it's a lot easier to find a home to buy than it is to find a home to rent. Now here's why. When you are looking on your apps, you're using, in our market, in our area, not a lot of people use Realtor.com. It is a website. It does exist. People do use it. I hear it's popular in other markets. But Zillow, headquarters here. Redfin, headquartered here. Compass, headquartered here. Great apps where you can find the homes that you're looking for. Now, here's the thing about that. You're going to find all the same homes on the same websites. Now, each website might ask for your home buying criteria a little bit differently. So you may see some different homes, but in general, they're all the same houses. And here's the reason for that. The reason I'm telling you this is because it's very different to rent. The reason I'm telling you this is because when they get all of the data information through a data exchange, an IDX, right? So when it syndicates out through the API from the Matrix. Now, we have a system as brokers. It's actually called the Matrix. It's not, it's not Keanu Reeves, but it's actually called the Matrix, and that is the system that the MLS, the multiple listing service, that all our cooperating brokers in our area belong to. That's where we input the data, right? Sometimes that's why, the unfortunate truth about some listings is the data's wrong, because it's a human putting in that information, right? So, but regardless, that's a whole nother topic. So what happens is that an agent like myself or another agent representing a seller will put the data in to have the pictures taken, get the video tour done, right? It's all up. Everything about how that's done is up to the agent, right? So knowing that agent puts that data in there, and then it pushes out through syndication, through an API, through an internet data exchange, out to those apps, right? And there's lag built into those apps. So when the moment that it comes on the market, you might not see it on your favorite app for an hour or two. That's just the way that it works, okay? Now here's the deal. That's when you go to buy a home, right? So everybody's kind of fishing out of the same pond when it comes to that. Now, if you connect with a great agent, you can have access to off-market, pre-market homes and condos, and be able to show you the ones that fit your criteria once they know what they're looking for. Not every agent is able to do that. It's a pretty, rare. My team, we offer that type of service. There's a few other agents out there I know that offer that type of service, but unlike California, we don't have coming soons. We don't have pre-market advertised homes. So it's really difficult to find. And I know other markets do those coming soons too, but in the Seattle market, it is against the board rules, the MLS rules. We're not allowed to do those coming soon things. So you really have to have an in with a great agent who knows what's going on in the market to be able to get you those pre-market homes. Otherwise, everyone is in the same pond. We're all fishing out of the same lake here, out of the same pond, right? So that's buying a house. That's why it's so easy to see houses that come up, because they're all pushed to the same apps. Now, when you go to rent a home and you're thinking about, hey, where can I see which homes are for rent? Whether it's a home, whether it's a townhouse, whether it's a condo, whether it's a apartment building, whatever it is, when you go to rent, there's not one place that you can go to look at all the homes. The reason that is that there's a lot of mom and pop landlords who just advertise their 1, 3, 5, however many rentals they have. There are a number. I searched Seattle Seattle property managers, and I came up with a list of 12. And that was just the first 12 that popped up. I mean, that's a ton. There are a ton of property managers. They only advertise their particular listings. They will put them on the MLS to get to push out, but they'll also put them on Craigslist and Zillow, right? Then you've got your apartment buildings who have internal staff who are only going to market the homes on their websites. So if you go in Seattle, there's a lot of newer apartment buildings with really, really nice finishes that have been built since in the last 5 years, last 10 years or so. And if you want to live in one of those buildings, you have to find the building, you have to find their website, and then you have to go ahead and call them or look at their website and go tour those. And I've got a tip for you on that. We'll save that sneaky tip for the end. I got 2 tips for the end that I want to share with you. But it is really, really hard, much harder to find a great rental than it is to find a home to purchase. So you've got to basically take a very judicious approach to finding a rental. That means searching Zillow, searching Craigslist, searching apartments.com, making a list of all the buildings in the area, and then calling. You've got to take notes. You've got to get, and then Seattle has a first come, first serve application process. So if you don't make the application right away, you might miss it. And then it is just on and on and on. And it is a hot market here and has been for a very long time. And it is difficult. I want to say that Seattle rents are up 22% in the last little while. I think I just had a website up. I probably just shut it off. But it is competitive to get into a rental, right? So it might be a little cheaper on the front end, but it feels like it's a lot harder to find a great rental than it is to find a great home, right? Okay, so now here's what we talked about, because I want to get to these 2 basically hacks that I can give you that is going to help make this way more easy and way more convenient. And so, like we spoke about in the beginning, right? If you're only going to be here for 3 years because you're going to get something on your resume and then you're going to transfer to Austin, you're going to get down to Texas, you're going to go out to New York to do something different, you're going to make your way down to California to do something different. I have a contact that bought a house here in Seattle. They bought a townhouse in Greenwood, and like we talked about, they were planned on being here for a while. Now what happened was their company actually gave them a position in Spain, and their company was going to help pay their closing costs and do some stuff so they could sell, right? But in their mind, they said, hey, you know what? I like Seattle. I want to come back, and I actually, by owning a home, I have more options, right? So we talked about house hacking. We talked about, building wealth through real estate just briefly. And so here's what they did, right? They're actually in California now. They switched companies again, but they have that home rented and it's paying for itself. Now, if they ever want to come back, they can. It's right there. And because appreciation's moved this way, it's cheaper to own that home now, come back to it later, and it's going to have increase in value. They got somebody else paying the mortgage, right? Really, really easy, really convenient. I had another client who wanted to build wealth through real estate. So they bought this great 1940s house in Ballard with a garage. They converted that garage into an additional dwelling unit. They brought in a roommate into the house, so they house hacked it, then a roommate into that ADU, and now they live in Tulsa. So they are making that appreciation that we see here, and they're making some mailbox money coming in to do that, right? They actually have more option because they chose to buy. And they did so knowing that they weren't necessarily going to be here more than 2 years, right? It just made sense to them to do it because that's the vision of the future they had for themselves. And now them and their significant other are in Tulsa. So the second thing that we talked about was the difficulty in finding a rental. Now, the 2 tips I have is really going to be about that. You have to take a massive action in hunting down, the property managers. They work for the landlords, right? They might see you as their client once you become a tenant, but really, it's really hard. You can't really find an agent or a broker to help you navigate the rental market because there's too many different places to look, and there's no compensation in it for a broker, right? The property managers will offer maybe some compensation, but there's just not, the incentive isn't there, so there isn't a market for it. If there was incentive, there might be, but you've got to make a list of all of the buildings. You've got to get on Craigslist and look in the area and make those phone calls and then deal with Craigslist scams. And then you've got to deal with, call property managers, and you've really got to make those appointments, make those phone calls, make the appointments, tour the property, and get your application in. And if you aren't the first one to get your application in, you largely won't be able to get into the home because Seattle has like this first come, first served kind of rule, which is difficult to navigate, right? So those are like the complications with it, right? And we are, like I said in this video, I'm not trying to convince you to buy real estate. That's not my job. Is to my role is always to be able to give advice, guide people through that process, and help them make really good decisions based on data and with little to no speculation at all. I'm just here to try to prepare you for what it might look like. And so these 2 things, this is it. This is what's going to help you the most, okay? So the trick in Seattle with renting a property is that in Seattle, a tenant has to give their landlord 20 days notice before their lease is up. So if a landlord wants to increase rent or is going to offer a non-renewal of their lease, they have to give that tenant a lot more notice. So the landlord is sitting on pins and needles wondering, hey, is that tenant going to re-up their lease? And the tenant only has to give them 20 days. So around the 8th of the month, okay, write that down. The 8th of the month is when you want to start calling those buildings and making appointments. Hey, has anybody given notice? Do you have anything coming up? Is there an opportunity to get, what's it look like? And start to make those appointments to get in. The 8th of the month is really going to be your opportunity to try to figure out what's going to be available. Does that make sense? Right? So it's a big deal because you got to narrow down your neighborhood. You got to narrow down the buildings. You got to make all those phone calls. But the 8th of the month, right around the 8th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, that's going to be the ideal time to make those phone calls. You've got to do it. Now, if you're buying a house, right, you go, hey, what neighborhood, what's a requirement, what's your nice to haves, and you go through that, and then you let a great agent help you find those properties and do it that way. But with renting, you've got to do all that your own. So that's tip number 1, 8th of the month. Start making those phone calls. Now, number 2, the secret trick. And the reason that I bring, let me back it up a little bit. The reason that this last best secret trick, I want to share this with you is because time and again, here's what happens. I love it when folks reach out, do a video call, a quick phone call, figure out what things will look like. But time and again, here's what happens. People say, hey, I think that I want to rent for a little while and get to know the Seattle area. The Seattle area is not complicated. It's north and south, downtown core. There's not a lot to it. It's a skinny city. It's not very densely populated. We have a lot of single family houses, and a lot of townhouses, a few condos. North to south is really easy. East to west, we've got, I almost said Commencement Bay, but that's wrong. We've got water on both sides, Lake Union in the middle, Green Lake kind of in the middle up there. It's really, really pretty easy. So here's what happens. People come out, hey, want to do a great job for you, totally understand. And then 3 months go by, 4 months go by, and you're dialed. You know the area. You know exactly, hey, what's what. You've gone out to different neighborhoods, grabbed a sandwich, had some pho, whatever, gone to the brewery district, and you've really, in that timeline, you've really been able to kind of come out, see the city, and know what neighborhoods work best for you. And it happens time and again where you get that phone call, hey, gosh, I wish I would have bought that first house that we looked at, but now I think that we're ready, but we have a lease and don't know what to do. Really simple and really easy. We try to make it really convenient for you. There's a lot of ways to help you get out of that lease and take that burden off your shoulders to make it really easy, convenient for you to make that move. But time and again, that's what happens. 3-4 months go by, and then it's time. You've got a handle on it, right? So here's the deal. The trick that I've seen worked for so many people is to come in and get a corporate rental, come in and get a short-term rental for 2 or 3 months or 1 month as you get to know the area. I've seen people do this as they look for their ideal apartment. I've seen people do this as they come in and look for housing. There's a few buildings around, a few places around that offer that type of furnished rental. You can leave your stuff in storage, or I've seen unfurnished as well. It's really convenient and really easy. Lets you get your bearings, lets you come into town and take a look around. So those are the 2 major tips. 8 days, the 8th of the month, and then come in and maybe do a short-term rental, a corporate rental. Microsoft has been doing that for their folks for years and years and years to bring them in, get them established, get them to work, and then let them find a place on their own. If you're thinking about making a move out to the Pacific Northwest, to the Emerald City, give us a call, shoot us a text. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. We love connecting with you. We want to hear from you, so you got to reach out. If you don't reach out, I can't help you. And we'll look forward to connecting, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, guys, talk to you.